Ben Rhodes, After the Fall, Being American in the World We've Made. Immerse yourself in the intriguing world of After the Fall, Being American in the World We've Made by Ben Rhodes, which sheds light on the post-Cold War path America has taken and how it's affected the country's stance on the global stage. From embracing capitalism to engaging in a never-ending war on terror, this book illuminates the complex dynamics that shaped America's transformation, as well as the rise of authoritarian leaders and nationalist politics in Hungary, Russia, and China. Discover how American exceptionalism crumbled and the consequences that rippled around the world, and explore the experts' opinions on what the future may hold for democracy.
America's post-Cold War decline. The sense of triumph and exceptionalism that pervaded in the United States during the 1980s made it seem unstoppable. American culture constantly celebrated the nation's strengths, while the real-world developments appeared to support this narrative. However, the end of the Cold War ushered in a period of uncertainty and decline for the U.S. The nation's focus shifted from promoting democracy to creating a global economy, which raised questions about its capitalist beliefs. The 2008 financial crisis exposed the flaws in this system, while America's involvement in the Middle East only added to the nation's tarnished reputation. Post-Cold War America saw the mighty fall as it lost its standing as a symbol of freedom and prosperity. The 1980s in the United States were marked by a sense of invincibility and boundless optimism, fueled in part by pop culture and the eventual victory in the Cold War. Yet, with the fall of the Berlin Wall, the country found itself facing new questions: what was its role in the world, and what would become its purpose on the global stage? While the U.S. had long been committed to promoting democracy, the Iron Curtain's collapse saw a shift in American priorities. Countries such as Hungary and Russia began to question America's brand of capitalism as the focus shifted from personal freedoms toward growing the world economy. This new economic doctrine, unfortunately, bred staggering inequalities and helped the rich become even wealthier. When the 2008 financial crisis struck, it showcased the danger of America's capitalist system, revealing its fragility for those not in the upper echelons of wealth. Around the same time, the United States was plunged into a seemingly endless conflict in the Middle East, attempting to root out terrorism. Regrettably, this war only resulted in more violence and the radicalization of new generations of extremists. Instead of being a beacon of liberty and wealth, post-Cold War America found itself spreading violence and poverty. This shift marked a stunning fall from grace for the once unrivaled nation, as it navigated the choppy waters of a new world order. The Nationalism-Authoritarianism Link. Identity politics has become a central component of nationalism in today's world, enabling right-wing politicians to exploit voters' fears in order to gain power. A prime example is Hungarian leader Viktor Orbán, who demonstrates the connection between nationalism and authoritarianism. Since 2010, Orbán has tightened his control on Hungary by manipulating the media, limiting freedoms, and undermining democracy. Once a supporter of civil liberties, Orbán changed his stance following the 2008 financial crisis by adopting a more nationalistic, populist persona. His successful implementation of identity politics led to the re-election as prime minister and domination of his party, Fidesz, over parliament. This strategy is not unique to Hungary, as similar tactics have appeared in Russia, China, and the United States. Putin's masterful authoritarian rise. Interestingly, while leaders like Orbán initially fought against corruption and Russian influence, they now admire Russia's grasp on the authoritarian playbook, mainly due to Putin's example. Putin's rise to power began after the Iron Curtain fell and the Cold War ended, as Russia struggled economically with rampant corruption. After being selected as Yeltsin's successor, Putin took control of the media, distributing wealth among allies and imprisoning potential threats. Over time, Putin consolidated his power, controlling local governance and the judiciary while advocating a strong anti-West narrative. Vladimir Putin stepped into the limelight following the Cold War when Boris Yeltsin's efforts in moving Russia away from communism in the 1990s stumbled. The country faced economic hardship and prevalent corruption, as well as a sense of humiliation from perceived Western actions. When Putin was chosen to replace Yeltsin in 1999, ensuring Yeltsin's immunity from corruption charges played a key role. Once in his position of leadership, Putin emulated Orbán by seizing media control and utilizing it for dissemination of the government's messaging and promotion of nationalistic sentiment. Wealth was knowingly directed to Putin's allies and loyalists, such as Igor Sekin, the recipient of the Yukos oil company. Simultaneously, independently wealthy individuals seen as threats, like Mikhail Khodorkovsky, risked imprisonment. As a result, dissenters who dared to challenge Putin often faced dire consequences. The high-profile case of Boris Nemtsov, assassinated mere blocks from the Kremlin, is one such example. Another is Alexei Navalny, who endured poisoning and hospitalization in August 2020. Throughout the past decade, Putin and his United Russia Party have meticulously solidified their hold over Russia by hand-selecting local governors and the judiciary, amplifying anti-West rhetoric along the way. This display of authoritarian prowess has not gone unnoticed, leaving some leaders to view Putin as a model for their own agendas. Fueling authoritarianism abroad. The tragic September 11, 2001 attacks set the stage for America's war on terror, unintentionally facilitating the rise of authoritarianism worldwide. Security measures like the Department of Homeland Security and the Patriot Act diminished individual liberties, and aggression towards nations uninvolved in the attack impacted America's moral standing. This enabled figures like Vladimir Putin to justify their authoritarian actions. The emergence of powerful social media platforms, initially assumed to bolster democracy, also contributed to foreign anti-democratic activities like disinformation and dividing societies. Emerging from the ashes of the devastating September 11, 2001 attacks, America launched its war on terror, forever altering the global political landscape. The U.S. focused upon preserving national security, deploying the Department of Homeland Security and passing the Patriot Act. However, these measures diminished civil liberties, marring America's moral authority and becoming the fuel for authoritarianism across the globe. Authoritarian leaders like Vladimir Putin leveraged America's tarnished image to justify their autocratic actions. The United States, no longer a bastion of democracy, had set a precedent that the world could dismiss the rules of global politics. Consequently, other countries took advantage of this new normal, following America's aggressive and interventionist approach. Social media platforms such as Facebook and Twitter, originally hailed for strengthening democracy, became powerful tools for authoritarian forces. Initially, these channels assisted pro-democracy uprisings in countries like Egypt and Ukraine, but as their influence grew, they became weapons against democracy. Russia, in particular, mastered the art of manipulating social media, disseminating dissident attacks, conspiracy theories, and causing division across Western societies. Thus, America's war on terror and its technological advancements created an unintended domino effect that enabled authoritarianism to flourish globally. China's next chapter demonstrates the sustained impact of this phenomenon, the ominously effective usage of technology for social control purposes in an increasingly connected world. China's post-Cold War evolution. Hungary and Russia provide distinct examples of nationalist authoritarianism, but China stands out with a unique blend of late-stage capitalism, technological surveillance, and influence from the United States. The end of the Cold War prompted China to adopt economic reforms under Deng Xiaoping's leadership while maintaining strict political control. This nationalist stance led to tensions and oppression, exemplified by China's crackdown on the Uyghur population. Technology has fueled China's economic growth but has also exacerbated surveillance and oppression. After the Cold War, the world saw various forms of nationalist authoritarianism emerge. Hungary adopted a relatively modern, Western approach, while Russia clung to traditional ideas of sovereignty and aggressive national security policies. But it's China that presents a strikingly distinct direction, heavily influenced by the United States. China has entered into a deep economic partnership with the U.S. since the end of the Cold War. This cooperation fulfilled a growing desire for inexpensive goods, significantly benefiting businesses and wealthy investors. However, China faced an existential challenge in avoiding the same fate as the Soviet Union, leading to its adaptation of capitalism. Under Deng Xiaoping's leadership, China embraced economic reforms while strengthening the Chinese Communist Party's grip on politics. Elements of nationalism and totalitarianism characterized this transformation, creating a sense of animosity towards others. By the 2000s, tension escalated as China ousted Tibetan Chinese citizens. Later, a 2014 attack by Uyghur Muslims in Xinjiang province led to the People's War on Terror. China's security forces launched a brutal crackdown on the Uyghur population, detaining over 1 million people in internment camps. Technology has been a double-edged sword for China, spurring impressive economic growth and lifting millions out of poverty. However, this same technology enables extensive surveillance and oppression, illustrating the darker side of China's post-Cold War evolution. China's digital control. Chinese President Xi Jinping has observed the rise of American technology and its potential to serve as an oppressive tool. China has constructed a social credit system that monitors citizens' interactions, purchases, whereabouts, and payment history. A good social credit score can open doors to better opportunities, while a low score can result in negative consequences or even detainment. Advanced surveillance technology has been implemented in areas like Xinjiang province, where even minor violations cause detainment. Furthermore, China is working on extending its influence through international projects like the Belt and Road Initiative, roping in other countries that may be hesitant to speak out against China's human rights issues. Meanwhile, China's attempts to exert more control over Hong Kong have fueled protests against potential extradition laws. China's government has taken a keen interest in technology, especially the kind originated in the United States. The end goal is to devise new ways of managing society, while exercising a tighter control over its citizens. One such contraption is the social credit system, which calculates citizens' actions and characteristics to produce an overall score. A positive score may lead to career and educational advancements, while a negative one can result in a range of consequences, including detainment. In regions like Xinjiang province, surveillance extends beyond the social credit system through ubiquitous cameras and monitored phone calls. Simple actions like sporting facial hair can land someone in trouble. Widespread surveillance is made possible through advanced American technology, whose full potential might not have been fully recognized by its creators. While tightening its grip on local citizens, China has also embarked on international endeavors, such as the Belt and Road Initiative. This massive project involves about 70 countries and aims to strengthen China's presence globally. Its ever-increasing influence has made other countries hesitant to condemn China's questionable human rights practices. China's desire to expand control has extended to Hong Kong's semi-autonomous territory, triggering a surge of protests. The catalyst for the demonstrations is a proposed extradition law that would allow for Hong Kong's citizens to be sent to mainland China. Protesters fear this might expose them to the same brutal treatments experienced by the Uyghurs in Xinjiang. Overall, China's government has effectively utilized American technology to fortify its hold on society, both at home and abroad. The consequences are far-reaching, potentially eroding the freedoms and human rights that the world has fought hard to preserve. Hope amidst authoritarianism. In a world where the struggle between democracy and authoritarianism persists, personal stories of those fighting for democratic ideals provide inspiration and hope. Conversations with individuals like Sandor Lederer, Jonna Nemtsova, and Hong Kong protesters reaffirm the belief that democracy will ultimately prevail. History teaches us that power dynamics have always shifted, and current global crises can serve as a reminder of the importance of truth, expert knowledge, and unity. The encounter with challenges, such as the rise of social media and disinformation, tests the resilience of democratic values, but the undying spirit of active protesters across the world offers reassurance that the pursuit of democracy cannot be suppressed or distorted. As we reflect on the post-Cold War world, countless personal tales reveal the impact of political decisions on individuals. Take, for instance, Sándor Lederer, a Hungarian anti-corruption activist, who became labeled an enemy of the state, and Zsuzsa Nemcova, who established a foundation promoting democracy in memory of her assassinated father, Boris Nemtsov. Through conversations with these individuals and Hong Kong protesters, the underlying question remains: will democracy persevere? Despite the rise of authoritarian leaders like Orbán, Putin, and Xi, there are reasons to remain hopeful. As President Barack Obama once pointed out, the struggle between democracy and totalitarianism has always ebbed and flowed, a pattern likely to continue through history. Some even see a silver lining in the global pandemic, as it may serve to remind people of the value of truth, expert knowledge, and unity, over distorted realities, conspiracy theories, or nationalism. Adversely, the crisis could entrench people further into their disinformation-filled social media bubbles, amplifying hatred and anger. However, there is growing awareness of the dangers the internet poses to democracy, prompting discussions surrounding the accountability of platforms like Facebook and the need for regulatory measures. Alexei Navalny, an anti-corruption campaigner in Russia, remains hopeful despite the challenges. Historically, leaders like Putin, Orbán, and Trump, who focus on power and wealth, eventually lose their justification for corruption, leading to the collapse of their empires. People protesting for democratic values in Budapest, Moscow, Hong Kong, and the United States embody this hope, proving that the quest for democracy cannot be silenced or obscured. As long as determined individuals continue to fight for justice and equality, there will always be hope amidst the rise of authoritarianism.
In conclusion, After the Fall walks you through America's unraveling global influence and the connections between the US, Hungary, Russia, and China after the Cold War. The book presents a comprehensive analysis of where things went wrong, highlighting how nationalism, authoritarianism, and corruption took center stage on the world's political landscape. Despite the turmoil and uncertainties, Rhodes offers reasons to be hopeful for the eventual downfall of authoritarian powers and the resurgence of democracy. While the world continues to evolve and change, the voices and actions of those who believe in the power of freedom, truth, and unity stand firm, reminding us of the enduring promise of a better tomorrow.